Jeanette Herbert, Utah's First Lady, thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Bob. It's an honor.
You were born in Preston, Idaho, and moved with your family at a very young age down to Springville in Utah County, and grew up there in Utah County, correct?
I did. Had a small stop in Milford for a few years. Actually attended kindergarten there, and then we moved to Springville. My dad was a manager of the J.C. Penney company. His first managership was in Milford, and then he got transferred to Springville, and that's where he actually retired, and they closed the store at the same time. So
my wife's father was also a J.C. Penney store manager as well in Hood River, Oregon.
They probably knew each other.
Yeah, we might be related.
We could be.
Did you have any idea that your life was going to turn out like it has?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. This was not even, you always think, well, I'm going to get married, I'm going to just be a mother, housewife, I'm just happy with that. And in between, I ended up owning my own business for 23 years, unexpected, and then coming to where we are now. So, you don't know where life's going to take you, and you just have to be prepared for anything that happens.
Now, you have been a celebrated businesswoman almost your entire adult life, and now here as Utah's First Lady. Your husband is going to end his public service at the end of his term in 2021, I guess, is when he'll actually leave office. Are you ready for this next phase, and how do you envision it going forward?
We're kind of struggling with that right now, to be honest with you. It's coming up fast. We decided we weren't going to run again, and now it's coming down to the last 18 months or so, and you start to think, what are we going to do? He's had offers. He's the kind, he says, I don't ever want to retire. He does not want to stop working. He says you have to have a reason to get up in the morning. And so I think that he'll continue doing something, working on boards. Right now they're working at UVU. He might start, some kind of constitutional studies group down there or whatever. So he's got some ideas of what he wants to do. And with me, I'm not exactly sure. I've wanted to get back into painting. I used to oil paint a little when I was younger. And so I thought, well, I'll go take some art classes and maybe start doing that again. Being an all-star grandma, I think, is probably the most important thing to me.
Now, the process of deciding whether or not to run again or to call this the end, that process took a good year, as I recall, maybe even more. I mean, based on the things that you certainly go through personally. Tell me about that process. How did you and your husband come to the decision that this is going to be it?
Well, I think for one thing, Utah does not have term limits. And so he could run as long as he wanted to. We'll be in almost 12 years by the end of this term. And Utah has done wonderful, and it's ranked #1 in so many things. It is still going good. The trajectory's good. I think we decided it's good to end on a high note. You never know when things are going to change. And plus, it's, after that long, I think it's just kind of time to turn the reins over to someone else. It's been hard. He's had a lot of encouragement to keep running from a lot of people, because things have been so well. I think people would rather like to, go on with somebody they know and they know how he works than take a risk on someone else. But so I think that was a lot of it. I think that it felt like it was time. It's like when I sold I had a daycare center and I'd had it for 23 years. And all of a sudden one day it was just like, it's time to sell this. And so I think that's how life is. You kind of just, you can feel when it's time to move on, and now it's just figuring out where we're moving on to.
Well, do you have any idea what you're going to do once you retire from politics?
We've thought about a number of things. We might serve a little LDS mission. We've always thought about doing that. And I think we'll probably stay pretty much where we're at. We have a home down in Utah County that we've kept. We actually go down there every weekend, and that's where we spend the weekend. And all our kids, we have 6 children and 16 grandchildren, and they all live within 15 minutes of our Utah County home. And so they come over every Sunday night. We have dinner, and they just love to hang around, and it's really kept our family close. But so we'll stay where we're at that way. You know, we like having our family close to us, and it's been a real blessing to us. And so we'll continue doing that. You know, Gary will find something to do because he doesn't want to really retire. I love to golf, so I'll probably play a little bit more golf than I've been able to do now. And maybe start doing some painting. You know, I used to love to oil paint, so maybe take some art classes. I might even go back to school. I might even go back to get a degree. I never finished my degree.
Oh, didn't you?
And I always, you know, I'd gone to school, and we got married and started having kids right off the bat. Always was going to go back and get it, and then I started my own business, and you know.
And so you took a pause for a little while.
Yes,
in your
we've
schooling.
taken a pause, but it's kind of something that I've thought that might be kind of fun to just go back and at least finish that up, just to say that I did. So.
You are a woman of great drive and determination. That's very clear. The public can see that. Why are some people driven, like you and your husband, and some people not so driven?
You know, I don't know. I think it's kind of like when we got into this office, I was scared to death. I mean, I knew he was going to run. He had run against Huntsman, then ended up being his running mate. And I knew that as soon as Huntsman stepped out, that Gary would run for governor. That was the plan. And so, but that was in the future. That was a long ways off. So you kind of put things off and don't think about it. And then when Huntsman, you know, within months of his second term, got chosen to be the ambassador to China and called us on the phone and said,
It's time.
Guess what? You know, you're going to take over from this moment on. And literally, we had a security card backed up in our driveway the next morning. But I remember it was just such a surreal feeling, and just feeling like, you know, life was topsy-turvy. And I can remember kind of that panic of, how will I be accepted? What is my role going to be? What do I do? And so I was a little nervous about that. And I just got thinking, you know, my life has been pretty easy. I've kind of just been cruising along. And as lieutenant governor, you know, you're involved and you're doing things, but still you're under the radar somewhat. But I thought, well, I can either just sit back and continue doing that, or I can take this as an opportunity to try to do something that could maybe make a difference. And so I decided to start my initiative, which is called Uplift Families. It's a parenting initiative, and it's to help encourage parents to get more education, more information as far as parenting, so they can, you know, it's scary today to be a parent. It is really, it is really something that parents need to be a little bit more vigilant than they used to be, maybe. And when I raised my own kids, you know, I mean, boy, our kids were just out all day long, and if they got hungry, they came in and ate. You know, I mean, it was just they could just run the neighborhood, and it was fine. Anymore, it's a little different, and you have to be a little more careful, especially as they get in those teenage years. And so we're trying to do something that will help parents raise resilient kids. And that resiliency, it's something that will bring kids, I think they have to have those tools so that as they get older and have these challenges of bullying or, you know, doing things that they're peer pressure on different things, that they have those skills to be able to choose the right thing, do the right thing. And so that's what we're trying to work on with parents is, you know, how to teach those kids the things necessary to become resilient and happy children.
And your conference, the family conference, is coming up. Uplift Families is what it's called. Coming up at the end of September.
September 28th, and we have a conference every year. We also have this wonderful website. It's called upliftfamilies.org, and it's a resource center for parents that they can get on there and get resources for if their kids have ADHD or they have drug problems or whatever. This gives them resources that they can find to help them through those situations. The conference in particular, we have different speakers that come and speak on different topics, you know, everything from internet safety to teen suicide to just basic parenting skills, you know, all different things that will help parents kind of spur them on to want to learn even more about what they can do to make sure that their kids are given those skills they need. And so it's very popular. We actually have a dinner, and so they're served a dinner. And so
that
we
gets
encourage
the
them.
husbands there.
Yes, and that's the important thing, is because parenting is a partnership.
Yeah.
And you can't just have it with one side or the other. And so that's why we want to have both of them there. We want, you know, anyone who is parenting children to be involved and come and get some information. And it's always a great evening. And, you know.
How do you sign up? How do you apply to be at the conference?
Upliftfamilies.org. We have right on our website, there's a place that you can sign up for the conference. And so
And
it's
the cost involved is?
the cost is minimal. It's $15 a person.
Oh, yeah.
So, that doesn't even pay for the meal. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So it's just something to get them there, and it seems like you have to pay something to make the commitment to get there, and so we make it minimal so they can afford to get there, but also they've made that commitment, and so it's but they enjoy it. We get a lot of people that come every year now, and so it's getting close to getting sold out, so people need to jump on that and get signed up.
You and your husband seem to be natural-born leaders.
Oh.
And the reason I say that is because of the obvious that, you've established the Uplift Families Initiative, you've got the conference going, your husband has been leading the state for a number of years now, and before that was on the Utah County Commission and Lieutenant Governor, and has been serving in public and leading for some time.
Yes.
What trait would you say is the most important trait that a leader can have to be effective?
I think there again, it goes back to parenting. I look at my parents. My parents were total do-it-yourselfers, and they taught us to do anything. They wouldn't help us. Once we got a car, I can remember one of our first dates, Gary came, and I was putting a new carburetor kit into my Corvair.
You were putting it in?
I was putting it in. My dad said, I will stand over you and tell you what to do and hand you a tool, but you will do this. And that's how my life was. That's how I was growing up, as my parents had us, we had to help with everything, and they were do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah.
But I think because of that, I gained the confidence in those abilities, and it kind of grew. And once you do something, you're afraid to do it, and then all of a sudden you do it, and you think, wow, I can do that. I can do that. So now I fix my dryers, I fix, anything. I will try to fix first before I get a repairman in, because it's just something ingrained in me from growing up. But I really do think that had a lot to do with it, was the parenting and them giving me self-confidence in my own abilities and giving me opportunities to grow that way. And I think Gary's dad was the same way. Gary's dad's saying was, work will win when wishy-washy wishing won't. And that's really stuck with him. And so they had a garden, and he was expected to help weed the garden and help out. And he had jobs from the time he was very young, mowing lawns and doing papers and delivering milk and everything else. So I think part of it was generational. I think anymore, I worry about parents not giving their kids those opportunities. Parents want to do everything for their kids. They want to help them with everything, and they don't want to see them fail. And failure is what builds character.
Well, it's natural for parents to want to protect their children from any kind of hurt or harm or emotional distress or anything like that. But in fact, it sounds like to me that before drive, it's the confidence that leads to the drive that then propels you forward. Am I reading you right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. It's that confidence and that resilience and learning that you can do hard things. Yeah. And I think that's what gives you the confidence to go out and lead and do and experience life the positive way that you should be able to. So, instead of just hiding in a corner and being afraid to do anything. And it's a growing thing. Like I said, when we first got in office, I was very unsure of myself, and public speaking was always a fear of mine. It still is. I don't love it, but I can do it. But I just decided, use this as a growing opportunity. And that's what I did. And so because of that, now I'm more comfortable with it, and it's not something that I'm, shying away from all the time like I used to. So,
you and your husband have been in public service for several decades now. Out in front leading. What kind of toll has it taken on you, your marriage, and your family?
I think part of it is that anytime you're in the public eye, you become a public target. And so we've had a few unfortunate things with, they're targeting one of our kids or doing something like that only because of my husband's position. And that makes it really hard. It's hard on my kids. I've tried to tell them, don't read the blogs. I never read the blogs. I don't read the comment sections. I don't read, because it just isn't worth it. I look at the positive things he's doing. I know what he's doing. I know the type of person he is, and I don't need to listen to all this negative hate speech that goes on out there. And so I tell my kids, don't get on there, because they are very protective of their dad, and they get very upset when they read these things about him. So that part's hard, but you can get away from it. You just don't, just don't deal with it. It's not always easy, but that's the best way to handle it. And but it's different, being in the public. My kids, they enjoy it because when we have an event, we are really family oriented. And when we first got in office, it was actually my youngest son, Brad, that called the family conference on one of our Sunday nights when we were together. And right after Gary found out he was going to step in as governor, and he just said, there's a few rules that we have as a family, and you need to be honest, you need to be forthright, and you need to make sure that you keep a balanced life. We love being together as a family. We love spending time together, and we want that to continue on. And so when we feel like things are starting to get out of balance, then we're going to let you know. We're going to let you know. And so we've really tried to, if we're going out to an event, if we're going to a rodeo, we'll get tickets for the whole family to go to the rodeo. If we have to speak at something, if there's some fun event, like we've got the state fair coming up. They love, we go and we judge the cookies there, whatever they're cooking, the pies, me and my husband, and then they come after and we spend the rest of the evening out on the, going on the rides and things, and they just love that. But we try to do as much as we can together as a family and include them. And then also, we tell them before, if you have something coming up, don't call me on the phone, call my scheduler, have her put it on the schedule. Now, sometimes we have to override it, but whenever we can, we want to be able to get to those grandkids' ball games and their dance dance concerts and whatever they're doing, that we want to show them that they are a priority.
In fact, your husband showed up at one of our son's basketball games. He was watching one of your grandkids.
Right, yeah.
And we sat right behind him and heckled the other team.
Yes.
No,
yes.
He was great. He was a great sport.
Yes. And so we try to do that because they really look forward to that. They really appreciate it when we show up at their games and things. And so those are the things that I think are important, is that you keep that balance. And you find out, and they said you will be a better leader if you do that, and it's been true. I think it really has been true because he's kept that balance. It's kept him humble. It's kept him connected with the family, and so it's really important that I think all leaders need to look at that and realize, where am I getting out of balance here, and try to get that back into the center. So,
what are your duties as Utah's First Lady? Is there a formal set of duties that you're supposed to follow?
It's not. One of the things that we, and now I help out with this, but when we first got in office, then they have, through the National Governors Association, they have a training for new governors and their spouses. And I remember it was such great instruction because basically they just said, what your involvement is up to you. Don't let anyone force you to do anything that you don't feel comfortable with. If you want to be very involved, then, their encouragement was to take advantage of this opportunity. You have a voice, so use that to make a difference. But if you want to just sit in the background, you can do that. So there's no real rules. And so really, as we go to these conventions, it's all over the place. A lot of them will adopt just some other cause or something. I started my own just because I felt that there was a need for some parenting help in the state. Just from my daycare. When I owned a daycare center for 23 years, I would have parents in my office and just asking all these questions. He's doing this, what should I do? What should I do? And I thought at the time, it would be great to have a mandatory parenting class in high school. But aside from that, try to get them the helps and information that they need that will help them feel more secure in their parenting. So a lot of them will just adopt something else, but I think it's important for the First Lady to be supportive of her husband. I try to go to as many events and dinners and things with him as I can. Sometimes we have to conquer and divide because we have two different functions on one night, so I'll represent one and him the other. But I think it's important to show that support. And so, I try to go to as many things with him as I can. And it's been good. And just, it's great. I think that's going to be one of the harder things when we leave, is that we have got to know so many great people. Really great people. Good people that are doing so many good things, and a lot of them that people are not involved, or not aware of, I should say. And I'm going to miss that. That's one of the things I'm really going to miss.
As Utah's First Lady, I know the public perception is that you have to be nice no matter what.
Well, I am.
Have you ever gotten into a situation where you got so steamed that you were almost not nice as the First Lady?
I don't think so. That's not my personality. And there might have been some things that I got steamed inside at something that somebody said or did, but I try to keep it under control.
You serve on the Governor's Mansion Foundation Board. What is it like living in that mansion, and what little-known fact about that building would you say that Utahns would be surprised to hear or find out?
Well, it has been great. I mean, it is such a beautiful building. And it was something that was donated from the Thomas Kearns family. He owned the Silver King mine. And when he passed away, his wife donated it in 1937 to be used as the official governor's residence. There was a time when they were out of that. They decided they needed something more modern, but they came back to it years later. And it's a beautiful building. It's historic. It's got so many great stories. And so it's really a privilege to be able to live there. You know, Gary jokes, he makes a joke about the fact that his dad told him, if you don't work hard, then you're going to end up on public assistance living in government housing. Well, you know, he's
guess
kind of
what?
could qualify. But no, it's a beautiful building. It was a little intimidating when we first moved in. We've got so many grandchildren. They love to go up there. They call it the castle because it's got the turrets and it's beautiful.
Right.
But it was, I was so careful. But then we found that we could just put things out of reach, so we didn't have to worry about it, because I thought, this is a family place. They encourage us to have the family up there.
Yeah.
So make sure that just those things that are valuable, put them out of reach, and then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about, where's Calvin, where's so-and-so.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so it has been great living there. It's a great building. It's got a lot of great stories. I really do believe that it is haunted.
I was going to ask, is it haunted?
So we've had some things happen that I would have to say there's not a lot of explanation for.
Like what?
Well, when we first moved in, as you go in and out of the doors, they have kind of a magnet on it, but there's this button you have to push for it to unlatch.
Right.
And it's really loud. It makes this really loud clicking sound. And so I can remember I'd be sitting there waiting for him to get down from the Capitol, and I'd hear that clicking sound and think, oh, Gary's home, and I'd start yelling down the hall. Well, he still hadn't even left the Capitol, and nobody else was in the building.
Oh, dear.
And I thought, okay, well, maybe there's just a flaw in the system here, But there's just been the one night I couldn't sleep, and I started to cough, and I didn't want to wake Gary up, so I got up and I went in on the couch and was just reading in there. And I said, well, I'll just lay down here on the couch so I don't wake him up. And so I'm laying there, and in the adjacent room, and there's a big door opening, is where we have our computers and our desks. And all of a sudden, the one computer just booted up, just bright, and you heard the little noise going on and everything. And I thought, oh, shoot, I woke him up, and he got up, and I asked him the next morning, I said, I'm so sorry, I tried not to wake you up. And he says, what are you talking about? I didn't wake up, I was sleeping fine. But, there's just, I don't know, I could tell a lot of different stories, but it's just been interesting. There's just always some little something happening, some little sound, something. In fact, the one time I was up, it was Christmas time, and we have all these events going on. I was up in the ballroom on the 3rd floor, and I was decorating for an event the next day and putting some things up, and it got to be late. It was probably about midnight. And right next to that, we have a kitchen that has these stainless steel countertops. And I kept hearing this pounding on that countertop,
And you were the only one up there.
I was the only one up there, but at that point, I had so much to get done. And finally, I just turned around and I said, please leave me alone. I have too much to do, so just leave me alone.
Really?
And it stopped. So, I've got pretty gutsy with it. Just, okay.
Wow.
It's not a bad feeling. I've never had, it's kind of more of a prankster type of ghost if we have one. I mean, one that just is, who knows what. But my granddaughter has said that she heard the piano playing in the night when she was staying over.
Wow.
And my one kids were staying up in the top 3rd floor bedroom, and there was an elevator shaft right next to it at 1:30 in the morning. All of a sudden they heard that elevator shaft going up and down, but no one was there and nobody was in it. Our security does little check-throughs, but they never take the elevator, and so it's just little quirky things like that. But I think any old building has to have a ghost.
You would think.
Just to make it interesting. And it's
Yeah.
not, you know, we're not afraid to sleep there. I'm not afraid to be there alone. You know, I mean, it's just what it is. So.
Wow. Wow. When have you been most proud of your husband as governor?
You know, it's really interesting, and this is probably different than what people would think. But he does something that he, you know, he's over the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has a day, in fact, it's coming up in a couple of weeks, where he actually inspects the troops. And so you have, you know, 5,000 to 6,000 National Guardsmen, and they're all lined up in their units. And anyway, and he's standing there, and they each come by, and each unit salute him and walk on. And for some reason, watching them do that and seeing him stand and all these people, you know, giving that honor was really, really moving to me. I was just so proud of him. It was, you know, like I said, it's probably not what people would think, but that was probably the first time I really think, wow, this is amazing. You know, this respect that he gets, you know, as a governor. And it's kind of hard. For instance, we just got back from Hawaii, and we went on this little tour with, you know, we just went outside and got this guy that had this little, he was a taxi driver, but he also did little tours. But after we got in, they were asking if the two guys, which were security behind us, were our sons. And so we had to say, well, no, that's our security. Well, why do you have security? But the guy was so excited to be driving around the governor of Utah that he just couldn't get over it. He's driven around stars and everything. He says, but this is, you know, I mean, that seemed to touch him. And I thought, we're sometimes so careful to not, because we don't want to come across as bragging or whatever, to not say anything. And yet when I see how much it means to these people, you know, to do that, you know, it's, you get kind of used to, okay, he's the governor and I'm the First Lady, but we don't think about it past that. I mean, you know, it's just kind of a position. But when you see how much it means to, especially when we go out to the rural counties and cities and these small little towns that never get anyone out there visiting, and you stop by and it's just, you know, it just means the world to them. And the fact that he takes time to sit and talk to each one of them. We're the last one to ever leave a room. Any banquet, you can ask anyone that's there, we're sweeping the floors on our way out, because he just loves to interact with people and talk to them and answer their problems and give them their card and say, well, call my office. And so it makes me proud that he is not above that, that connection to him is important, you know, that he connects with the common citizen. And they know that. And I think that's why he's as popular as he is, because of that connection that he has with just everyone.
Do you think your husband would make a good president?
I think he would make a fantastic president. I would never want him to do it. He's actually had people encourage him to do that. You know, I would have a hard time staying positive, I think, back there. It's hard. He would do a great job, but he's the type of person they need back there. You know, he's the kind that he really, I think probably his biggest forte is being able to bring two groups of people together and bring them to a compromise. Sit together. When he first got in office, he was so tired of all the stuff going on in education and the divisiveness and, you know, taking sides on things, that the first thing he did is he formed a commission with about 24 people, and he had everything from principals, teachers, parents, business people, you know, the whole gamut of people involved in education, brought them together, and he meets with them and actually sits down in that room. He doesn't just introduce it and then leave the room, but basically lock the doors, here's the problems, let's get them resolved. And with 6 months, they had passed 17 resolutions, unanimously.
Wow.
You know, and that's because he just said, okay, you speak, now what are we going to do to solve that? You know, and that's what he's good at. You know, he's good at bringing people together and let's find a common solution. And that's what we need in a leader of our country, I think, you know. And so he'd be great at that, he would. But yeah, we're going to kind of move off of politics, I think, a little bit. So.
Could he be persuaded to run for president at this point?
It would take persuading me, which would be a little tough. For one thing, I have this addiction to my grandchildren. And so having to move away from them would be really hard for me. I can do it for a little short period of time, but I love having them there every week, you know, they're there all the time. And our kids are so close. I think they're, again, parenting initiative, making sure that you create those bonds in your family are so critically important. because it's those bonds that will hold them together. It gives them a safe place to be. It gives those grandkids, they're all friends with their cousins. They're all, they're like all siblings. But you have to create that environment to where they feel safe. They feel like they've got a place of refuge when they need it. And so it's just, family is what it's all about.
What political issue do you and your husband not agree on, even just a little bit?
Just a little bit. Okay, let me think. That's kind of a hard one because there's most things we agree on. There's a few things that we'll...
Like what?
I can't even think of one right now. I'll have to think for a minute. Let's see. Utah Lake.
Utah Lake. What about Utah Lake?
I've been pushing him. I says, we need to develop Utah Lake. It just costs a lot of money, but I keep pushing him on it. And he says, well, there's groups doing it, there's groups doing it. It's like, well, okay, well, let's get doing something on it. So anyway, it's not that he doesn't want it to be developed, because we live in Utah County.
Sure.
And, but it's just, it's a big expense. And there's a lot of different factors but anyway, so there's things that I kind of needle him about a little bit every once in a while. But as far as totally not agreeing, there's not, there might be little gaps, but not anything big. We're pretty much on the same page politically.
Have you ever successfully straightened him out on an issue that he was absolutely wrong on?
Yes, but I don't want to say what it was. It's
Can
something
you give
that
us
I
a
was
hint?
just, no, but it was something that I just feel like he didn't have the information he needed. I'd been out with some groups and got some additional information, and when I sat down and actually brought some people in from this group and said, I just want you to listen to them, just listen to their side. And after he did that, then it was like, okay, I can see what you're saying.
So you really did have some political influence with him
Yeah.
on an important issue.
I thought it was important, or I wouldn't have done that, but like I said, on the whole, we don't have any big disagreements, but then he is good to listen when I, if I bring it up, and if he knows I'm passionate about it, then
Yeah, he'd better listen.
he better listen.
How have politics changed since you two got involved in it?
Unfortunately, not for the better, I don't feel like. Utah, we are so fortunate. When I even talk to other governors and other first spouses about things that go on in their state, I just think, thank heavens we live in Utah, because we have really top-notch legislators on both sides of the aisle. And the thing is, they can actually come together and reach compromises, and they have a great respect for each other. They actually get things done. We are a great model of what could happen nationwide. If they would just look at people that use common sense, that don't get off in the, you have to use common sense in what you're doing. Politicians have to have that. If they don't have that, they lose credibility, and they lose the ability to lead, I believe. But yeah, I just think that Utah does a great job of really getting things done, and that's why we're the #1 state in so many areas, because of that, and because we have such incredible people here. We just had the National Governors Conference here just a couple of weeks ago. And we were out on Saturday after the conference. The governor of Maryland wanted us to go out to Olympic Village with him and spend some time. But one of the first things he said was, he said, and he's the governor of Maryland, and Governor Hogan, and he said, I have never met happier people than I've met here in Utah. He says, everyone is content, everyone is happy, everyone is smiling, everyone is helpful. He said, I am so impressed with the people of your state. And, we take that for granted, but we get that over and over again. It's not the first one that we've had comment on that. And it just makes me very happy, very proud to represent such great people.
As you look back on your tenure and your husband's tenure in public life, what one event or one thing stands out above all the others as the most memorable?
Now that's a tough one. I'd have to think on that one for a minute, because I don't know that there's one event that stands out. Well, I think probably his first inauguration. I think sitting there on the stand, we had this wonderful choir from Utah State that came, and sang these patriotic songs, and just being out there on that stage and realizing, the situation we were in, I mean, it was just really something that was very moving. I just won't forget that feeling at that time of, all these people out there, applauding us and cheering us on, and it was pretty amazing.
If you had to go back and do it all over again, what would
Yeah.
you change?
Oh, let's see, what would I change? Not a lot. There's not a lot. I mean, and I feel fortunate in being able to say that because we have really enjoyed it. I think a lot of it is because, especially with me, when I got in, I thought, okay, this is all about attitude. I can go into this with a really lousy attitude, like this is going to change my life. I'm not going to be able to spend as much time doing this or that, golfing or whatever.
Right, right.
But I just thought, I'm going to do it, so why not go in with a positive attitude? Why not just go in and put a positive spin on anything that happens and, just be happy about it? Because it's going to happen anyway, so make it a good experience rather than a negative one. And I think that that's made a lot of difference. It's all about attitude. It's just so much about attitude in life, and your attitude toward anything you do. But if you can look at it and put a positive spin on anything, even if it's difficult things, then you try to get through that with a smile on your face, and I think it's a little contagious too. I think that if the more people you're around that are positive and happy, the more you want to be the same way. But I think because of that, there hasn't been anything that I could look back and say, wow, I sure wish we wouldn't have done this, or this has sure been a miserable so many years, So I think it's hard to say that I'd do anything too different. I mean, if I really thought about it, I'm sure there's a few things that'll come up after I leave this that I'll think, well, wait, there was that one time. So.
Yeah. In the coming months, Utah is going to have a new governor and a new First Lady. After your years and your husband's years serving in those positions, what advice would you give to them?
I think it would be the same thing. I think it would be the advice that, be sure to be available to people. Don't ever think that you're above anyone else. Don't ever think that you are better than them. Listen to people, be available, be positive, try to radiate happiness wherever you go, and don't read the comment section. That would be my biggest thing, is just stay away from that, because that can drive you to negativity as much as anything. Yeah. Just look positive and look at what positive impact you can make, something that you can do that maybe you can make a difference and feel good about it and leave some kind of legacy, hopefully. So,
well,
that'd be it.
Jeanette Herbert, Utah's First Lady, thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.